Hey guys, so some pretty interesting news today from Rian Johnson, director of The Last Jedi. He's just given some pretty honest thoughts on what he actually thinks of the movie, of Star Wars, of the direction The Rise of Skywalker took as well, kind of going against everything he set up, and whether he's going to potentially be making more Star Wars films in the future. This comes from an interview he did with Rolling Stone, and they actually asked him quite a few questions about his involvement in Star Wars. And first thing I think is interesting, when asked about his time working on Star Wars and what it was like, he seems completely positive about it, which is honestly good to hear, especially considering the backlash he received to the film he made. I'm not necessarily saying I agree or even like The Last Jedi, but I certainly don't ever believe in going after one individual person and, shaming and hating someone for their beliefs and what they thought was their vision. He described his time with Star Wars, though, as just magical, which I think is good to see. And he was also asked about how there were rumors that he was going to also direct The Rise of Skywalker, which he kind of denied. But regardless of this, he said that had he been told he was making both The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, that he would have ended The Last Jedi the same way, that nothing would have necessarily changed. From the very start, the assignment was doing the 8th film, The Last Jedi, and another director would do the 9th. He also talked about where and why he decided to do the Holdo maneuver. He said it came from A New Hope. It was always in my head when Han tells Luke that without the right calculations, they could fly into a star and that it'd end your trip real quick, wouldn't it? I thought, well, if that's physically possible, what would that look like? But this is interesting because then the interviewer turns this around on him and talks about how The Rise of Skywalker kind of went against everything he set up in episode 8. In The Rise of Skywalker, there's a scene where someone asks, why don't you just do the Holdo maneuver with an unmanned ship? And someone else says that's a 1,000,000 to 1 shot that will never work again. There are a few other things in the film like that, including undoing the idea that Rey was nobody and instead Palpatine's granddaughter. When you saw the film and learned that they were doing some of those things, undoing his work, how did you feel about that? He said, when I saw the movie, I had a great time watching it. Again, this is all about point of view. I never approached this as like my territory that I'm carving out for my thing. In my perspective, JJ did the same thing with the 3rd that I did with the 2nd, just telling the story the way that's most compelling going forward. That means not just validating what came before, but recontextualizing it and evolving it and changing as the story moves forward. I didn't feel resentful in some way. He talks about, though, how it's a movie that's made by his friends with his friends in it. It's a Star Wars movie. It's all stuff I love. I'm not the one to come to for a hard-hitting critique. You can go to YouTube for that. But he also was asked about the backlash and criticism he received, saying it never feels good to have somebody coming after you on the internet, and especially coming after you saying things that I think I very much do not agree with about a thing I made and put a lot of heart and soul into. But growing up with Star Wars and as a Star Wars fan, he understands. He also said he was in college when the prequels came out and he and his friends were prequel hate central. Everyone was ruthless at the time. But now the prequels are embraced. But he's also not saying, oh, things will flip around in 20 years. He just understands the passion of Star Wars fans and the different opinions, which I respect. He's also asked about his Star Wars trilogy that was rumored a while back. He said nothing really happened with it. We had a great time working together and they said, let's keep doing it. And I said, great. And he would kick around ideas with Kathleen Kennedy, but the short version of it, he ended up making Knives Out. His career took a different direction and he just hasn't really done anything else in Star Wars for now and is happy with the direction his career has taken. If Rian Johnson was ever to be given another Star Wars film, I would definitely go see it, but I'm not necessarily sure he's the one to take Star Wars in the direction we want it to go in. And is that something Disney would even be willing to do, considering the controversy created around The Last Jedi, arguably the most controversial Star Wars film ever made, Star Wars anything ever made? It seems like for now, though, that's kind of unlikely considering the direction his career has taken. But what do you think of Rian Johnson's comments here? Let me know. Also, watch this video for more Star Wars, subscribe, and always remember,
stay bombastic.